I found 15 cozy British period dramas that'll actually make you feel better, and number 11 has Judi Dench and a 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. The Larkins is a remake of The Darling Buds of May, set in 1950s Kent. Pop Larkin, his wife Ma, and their 6 kids run a farm where nothing ever goes seriously wrong. Every episode has some gentle little adventure, a country fair, a matchmaking scheme, or just some neighbors getting into harmless trouble. It's nostalgic in that very specific British countryside way. The characters are endearing, there's humor and warmth everywhere, and the whole vibe is just comforting. My one tiny complaint, and you see it in a lot of modern period pieces, they've shoehorned 2020's morals into a 1950s setting. But even with that, it's still entertaining. Yeah, it's a story about a fun-loving family and goofy neighbors that's been done a million times. But when it's done well, who cares? If you want something light where nobody dies or betrays anyone, watch The Larkins. 1960s Wales. Dr. Prem Sharma and his wife Kamini moved from Delhi to a tiny coal mining village as part of a program bringing Indian doctors to Britain. Kamini thought they were moving to London. Instead, she's stuck in a small Welsh town where half the locals don't want them there and the other half are cautiously welcoming. She's furious, but Dr. Prem decides they're staying anyway. He starts treating patients, getting involved with the community, and pretty quickly stumbles onto a medical mystery involving the coal mines that the entire town depends on. Each episode balances medical cases with cultural tension and humor. There's hope mixed with realism. The show doesn't pretend everything's easy or that prejudice doesn't exist, but it's optimistic about people eventually figuring out how to understand each other. 15 episodes, 45 minutes each, very binge-friendly. England's first department store opens in the late 1870s. Denise Lovett, a shopgirl from small-town Scotland, gets hired and suddenly she's working in the most glamorous modern place she's ever seen. She's talented, she's ambitious, and the store owner notices her pretty fast. So yeah, there's a Cinderella-style romance happening. At first, the characters feel typical. You've seen these types before in period dramas. But they develop real personalities as the show goes on, and the writing is sharp enough to keep you interested even though you can probably guess where the romance is heading. What I appreciated most, and what sets it apart from a lot of period pieces, The Paradise doesn't get obsessed with class differences. It treats all the characters as equals regardless of their social standing and gives them interesting backstories. The sets and costumes here are good but not exceptional. The quality comes from the concept and the script. 2 women in a 1930s English village absolutely hate each other, and it's the most delightful thing you'll ever watch. Miss Mapp and Mrs. Lucia Lucas are social rivals fighting for supremacy over everything. Garden parties, bridge games, who gets to host which event. When Lucia rents Mapp's house for the summer, the gloves come off. These are upper-middle-class women competing for petty one-upmanship and the latest gossip, and it's absurd in the best way. It's only 3 episodes, but they're packed with the most eccentric characters creating the most ridiculous situations. You could dismiss it as pure froth and pretty scenery, except the characters are instantly recognizable and the dialogue is wonderful. Miranda Richardson and Anna Chancellor are perfectly cast, and they commit to the pettiness with such seriousness that it becomes hilarious. It's wicked, but it never loses that polite tea time atmosphere. By the end, someone gets their comeuppance, and it's deeply satisfying. P.G. Wodehouse wrote the Jeeves and Worcester stories, which everyone knows, but he also wrote the Blandings Castle stories set in 1920 Shropshire, and they're just as funny. Blandings is 6 episodes of pure farce. There's no real substance to the plot. It's just rich people acting foolishly at a family estate and everything ends well. But it's hilarious. Timothy Spall plays Lord Clarence Emsworth, a completely idiotic aristocrat whose main concern in life is the health and well-being of his pig Empress. Opposite him is his sister, Lady Connie, a shrewish harpy who's constantly trying to keep Clarence in line through threats and intimidation. She hires secretaries to organize his hopelessly chaotic life, but it never works because Clarence is fundamentally unteachable. The show is full of slapstick and loony guests creating non-stop misadventures. It's unadulterated farce with playful music and over-the-top characters. George Mottershead has a dream. He's going to build a zoo with no cages. He moves his family to a rundown estate to make it happen, and the locals are split between thinking he's inspiring and thinking he's lost his mind. The series is based on the true story of how Chester Zoo was founded, so you know it works out. But watching George actually try to pull it off is the fun part. George starts bringing animals home. A parrot from the docks, a monkey that's about to be chloroformed. He sets up a prototype zoo in the outside toilet in the backyard. Then he decides to sell the monkey to the circus. But when he gets there, the ringmaster mentions they might need to put down an old camel. So naturally, George brings the camel home to his little house. In real life, this kind of spontaneity would warrant immediate divorce. In the context of the show, it's adorable and quirky and noble. His mother, played by Anne Reed, is the only voice of dissent, and she's constantly scoffing at his idealism. The show is sentimental and wholesome, lots of heartstring, tugging moments. It's hard not to root for George and his eccentric family bonding over orphaned animals. Julian Fellowes adapted an Anthony Trollope novel into a 3-part miniseries, and if you wanted Downton Abbey but with less tragedy, you got it. It's set in Regency era. Mary Thorne grows up poor, raised by her uncle, Dr. Thorne. She spends her childhood with the aristocratic Gresham family, falls in love with their son Frank, and then everything gets complicated because she's penniless and he needs to marry rich. Luckily for us, Trollope specialized in happy endings, and Fellowes doesn't change that at all. Even the snobbiest characters turn out to have hearts of gold by the end. It's lighter and sunnier than Downton. There's witty dialogue and romantic entanglements, but nobody's life gets destroyed. The best parts are Lady Arabella and the Countess, 2 greedy women who spend the entire series trying to break up Mary and Frank. They knock everyone aside, scheme constantly, and eventually get exactly what's coming to them. People wrote off All Creatures Great and Small before it even aired because Channel 5 doesn't make original drama. Everyone figured it would be terrible. Turned out they were completely wrong. The show brings back James Herriot's stories about a young vet in 1930s Yorkshire. It's all gentle drama, rolling slow-burning romances, eccentric neighbors, and animals everywhere. The tone is warm and humorous throughout. The BBC actually turned it down because it didn't fit their target audience. Big mistake on their part. It's technically a remake. The BBC did a version decades ago, but really it's a fresh take on Herriot's books. They pull plots from the original stories and sometimes make them more dramatic, but the gentle spirit stays intact. No politics, no agenda, just family entertainment in beautiful countryside. It's well written and well acted, gorgeous to look at. Sweet and comfy from episode 1, and it's still running, so there's plenty to watch. A widowed English mother in 1935 decides to pack up her 4 kids and move to Corfu. Just completely uproot everyone and start over on a Greek island. Based on Gerald Durrell's memoirs, the show follows the family trying to adjust while the kids are all figuring out who they are. The youngest, Jerry, is obsessed with animals. He's constantly rescuing them and housing them, turning the place into a zoo. The family bickers constantly. They're all eccentric. They get into ridiculous situations with the locals, but underneath the chaos, there's real love there. What keeps it from being too sweet is the humor has bite to it. These people genuinely annoy each other, but the tone stays uplifting. You're watching a chaotic family make it work against a gorgeous Mediterranean backdrop. Leslie Caron is in it. The kids are all great, and the photography makes Corfu look stunning. Brilliant blue sky and sea, rustic countryside that feels authentic to the 1930s. The animals running around everywhere add this fun, realistic element to daily life. It ran for 4 seasons, so there's plenty to get through. Mishaps and problems keep happening, but it never gets dark. 1890s Oxfordshire. Young Laura lives in Lark, a tiny hamlet where nothing much ever happens. She moves to the nearby village of Candleford to become an apprentice postmistress, and the show follows her life there. Each episode is filled with small-town adventures. Friendships forming, romances starting, neighbors getting involved in each other's business. It's all incredibly gentle, set in Victorian rural England. I get it when people get tired of modern drama where everyone's dark and cynical and unpleasant. Lark, Rise to Candleford is the complete opposite. The characters have conflicts, but they rise above them. They see past each other's flaws and actually support and love each other. Is it realistic? No, it's a fairy tale. But the camera work is beautiful. The sets and costumes are amazing, and the cast of characters is genuinely interesting. What's wrong with having one show that leaves you feeling better about people? Cranford has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. 5 episodes, BBC miniseries, set in a small English village in the 1840s. Judi Dench stars alongside what feels like every great British actress working at the time. The village hasn't changed much over the years. The established ladies who run the place intend to keep it that way. Then a railway line starts being built closer and closer to town, and everything begins to shift whether they like it or not. At the heart of the story are the women of Cranford, and gossip is their way of life. Eileen Atkins plays Miss Deborah Jenkins, the elderly, severe woman who decides what's proper in the village. Her sister, Miss Mattie, played by Judi Dench, is scatterbrained but warm and empathetic. Then there's Miss Pole, who transmits juicy information. Mrs. Forrester, a good-hearted widow who dithers a lot. Miss Jameson, who's better off than the others and makes sure everyone knows it. Over the next year in Cranford, a new young doctor arrives. The train line gets closer. There are romances and marriages, typhoid, death, and poverty. But through all of it, you care about these women so much you don't want it to end. The show has that Austen vibe. It's warm and funny with the occasional crisis thrown in. This one is a BBC adaptation of Elizabeth Gaskell's novel from the 1860s. The daughter of a country doctor has to deal with an unwanted stepmother, an impetuous stepsister, town gossips, and her own feelings for a man who only thinks of her as a friend. Andrew Davies adapted it, and it was praised as one of the best costume dramas of the late 90s. People call it pitch perfect, one of the most finely crafted period dramas ever made. The series focuses on everyday life and character development rather than high melodrama. It's gentle, realistic, and the cast is strong. Here's an interesting bit. Elizabeth Gaskell never finished the novel. She died before completing it, so the screenwriters had to craft their own ending, and apparently they did it well because people consider it satisfying. People call it the perfect Sunday evening period piece. 4 episodes where you get invested in people's quiet problems and small victories. Father Brown started as short stories by Chesterton back in 1911. The character was a Catholic priest who solved crimes not through forensics or deduction, but through understanding human nature and having compassion for people. The BBC took that concept and made it into a long-running series set in the early 1950s Cotswolds, and they took some serious liberties with the original stories. Every episode is a self-contained whodunit in a picturesque English village called Candleford. Thatched cottages, rolling hills, a quaint church. Father Brown keeps stumbling onto murders and solving them. The key thing about Father Brown is it's pure cozy crime. The murders are bloodless and mild. Nobody's getting graphically killed on screen. The focus is entirely on the puzzle and the characters. Each episode explores redemption and forgiveness without ever getting dark or gruesome. It's escapism in the best way. The 1950s setting with all the period details puts you in a world that's slower paced and simpler than what we deal with now. Sure, there are still problems. People still kill each other, obviously. But there's something comforting about watching a kindly priest solve crimes in a village where everyone knows everyone. The show's been running since 2013 and they're still making new episodes, so if you get hooked, you've got over a decade of content to watch. 4-part miniseries that's basically fan fiction brought to life, and I mean that in the best way. Amanda is a modern-day Londoner who's obsessed with Pride and Prejudice. She's dissatisfied with her life, her job, and her boyfriend. Then, through some mysterious doorway situation, she switches places with Elizabeth Bennet. Amanda ends up inside the actual Pride and Prejudice story. The whole series follows Amanda as she tries to navigate the Pride and Prejudice plot, except she's there instead of Lizzie, so everything starts going wrong. The best part about Lost in Austen is you think you know how Pride and Prejudice goes, and then Amanda's presence changes everything. Important plot developments go completely sideways. People end up with the wrong partners. Darcy's still around, but nothing's happening the way it should because Elizabeth isn't there to make it happen. Some of Amanda's modern behaviors are annoying. She'll say something contemporary and you can feel the anachronism. But they're also kind of true to how someone would actually react if they got dropped into a Jane Austen novel. Most people end up where they should by the finale, but watching the whole thing unfold in unexpected ways is genuinely entertaining, especially on the first viewing when you don't know what's coming. Julian Fellowes made another period drama after Downton Abbey. Belgravia is set in 1840s London high society with a big flashback to the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Two families are connected by a secret that's been kept for decades, and the whole series is about that secret unraveling. There's grand ballrooms, gorgeous costumes, upstairs-downstairs intrigue, all the things Fellowes knows how to do. And of course there are schemes and scandals, but the tone stays reassuring and warm throughout. The themes are forgiveness, love across class lines, second chances late in life. By the end, old wounds get healed and a new family gets forged. It's emotionally satisfying in that very specific Julian Fellowes way. If you don't like historical dramas, Belgravia won't change your mind. And if you are a fan, you'll recognize a lot of the beats because Fellowes has a formula and he sticks to it. But sometimes you want comfort food, and that's exactly what Belgravia is. High-class cheese that's very easy to binge. It's not trying to reinvent the genre or shatter your expectations. It's just a comfortable pleasure.